What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. and Matthews, break down all the original content you watch on the WWE Network, on Peacock, and on Vice. As today we're talking Season 1, Episode 2 of Tales from the Territory, entitled Andy Kaufman versus the King of Memphis. So this episode was all about the Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler feud from the 80s, widely regarded as one of the greatest wrestling rivalries of all time, just due to the fact that, Kaufman was a big name in acting and in entertainment in Hollywood at that point, just being on Taxi around that time. Very popular TV show, of course. And his involvement with wrestling brought a lot of new eyes and mainstream attention to the business at that point. So this is basically an extension of the episode from last week on Memphis, but I'm glad that they saved an entire episode for this feud. If you're well aware of the feud and the story and the inner workings of it and Lawler's side of it, who he's talked about it in his book before and on many other platforms and podcasts and stuff like that. It's pretty well documented stuff if you're a fan of wrestling. But if you are a newer fan or just haven't heard about it in a while or don't know the specifics of the storyline, then this episode is great. The episode is great anyway. I mean, even as someone who, not followed the feud back then, it wasn't even born yet, but as someone who was, fairly knowledgeable with the Kaufman and Jerry Lawler stuff, I still found this episode fascinating, just hearing Jerry kind of recall his side of it, telling the story of their matches and their interactions, and Kaufman just being a fan, wanting to work with Jerry and bring more attention to wrestling, which is really cool. So it's basically unlike last week where everyone takes turns sharing stories. We do hear from Jerry Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, Jimmy Hart, Dutch Mantell, in addition to Jerry, but it really is all Jerry talking, them asking him questions, them incorporating their own 2 cents. It really is just Jerry Lawler talking, that is. So he talks about how Kaufman got into wrestling as a kid, not wrestling himself, but watching wrestling as a kid, and was specifically drawn to people like Buddy Rogers and loving his heel work. And as a comedian, Andy Kaufman, Lawler says, always wanted to make the crowd uncomfortable, and he got famous from doing Taxi. His success on there led him to doing stuff with wrestling, wanted to live out his childhood dream of being a wrestler, basically, and he called himself the intergender wrestling champion. So he made a lot of, anti-women jokes in his stand-up, and on purpose, not because he actually felt that way, because he knew it would get him heat and whatever. He actually asked Vince McMahon Sr. about wrestling on one of his shows, and Vince Sr., was actually hesitant about using celebrities in his matches, which is so fucking ironic because his son would do the exact opposite, not even in recent years, but as early as WrestleMania 1. And obviously this was before WrestleMania 1, but kind of crazy to think about all these years later. This might have been in the 70s. I thought it was in the early 80s, but I forget the timeline exactly. Anyway, Bill Apter overheard that conversation, directed Kaufman to Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, saying, hey, they could probably help you out. You could probably do what you want to do over there in Memphis, and they can, work out a deal for you or whatever. Jerry Jarrett was actually skeptical that it was Andy Kaufman on the phone, but he wrote down his number, directed him to Lawler, and Kaufman sent in videos talking shit about the fans, talking shit about the Memphis wrestler, specifically Jerry, and in his first appearance at one of their shows, he sold out the Mid-South Coliseum. And he only wrestled women early on, and he was a great heel. He did his work phenomenally well. It was only supposed to be a one-off, but it went so well that Lawler and Jarrett wanted him back, so he came back for a second week. And it was on that show where he beat all the women again, and I think the women knew about it. I'm not exactly sure if they were plants or fans. I don't remember exactly. I'm not sure if they talked about that here. I would assume they were in on it, but again, I don't know. But the final woman that he wrestled was named Foxy, and she actually took Kaufman's pants off during the course of the match, and she got the upper hand on him at one point. Ultimately, he did beat her, but they ran with that for a while. He did a rematch with Foxy. By the end of it, Lawler made the save for Kaufman, or rather for Foxy against Kaufman. Place goes crazy for Lawler in Memphis, of course, and he pushed Kaufman. Kaufman was completely bewildered by this, completely shocked, and said, I'm going to threaten to sue you if you put your hands on me again, blah, blah, blah. So that kicked off the actual feud. So behind the scenes, they started talking about having a match with each other. Dutch Mantell, Zeb Coulter, who's also on the episode, of course, as they mentioned earlier, wanted to be kept in the dark about this whole thing. He wanted to watch it as a fan, and he would watch it on the floor from afar at the shows, which is really cool, all the interactions between the two. Jerry Calhoun was the only other person who knew about the inner workings of the feud and the match itself, and they actually went to his place to rehearse the match, I believe. During the course of the match, he, hit him with a back body drop, whatever, and then a pile driver. Kaufman sold it like he died. And he paid for his own ambulance. He got stretchered out with a fucking neck brace. And he sold it as legitimate. He acted as if he was angry towards Jerry, which he wasn't. And he stayed in the hospital for a few days. He didn't talk to Jerry for at least a week. No one heard from Jerry. I'm sorry, not from Jerry. From Kaufman. No one heard from Kaufman at all. Kaufman sold it as if it was legit. And it went perfectly well. Kaufman even wanted to wear the neck brace on Taxi. And the writers, I guess, actually threatened to write him off the show, kick him off the show if he continued to wear it while they were filming. So he ultimately did not wear it on the show, but that would have been amazing. Tony Danza, who was on the show, actually had heat with Lawler because he thought the whole thing was real and that Lawler was picking on fucking Andy Kaufman. It almost led to a boxing match between the two, and Lawler was like, I'm going to have to kick the shit out of this guy for real. Let's probably not. It just never really surfaced. He's like, we should probably not do that, and it never came to pass, but I thought that whole thing was interesting. Kaufman wanted Lawler on the Letterman show, on the David Letterman show in the first few months of its existence on the air. And Lawler obviously said yes, and Lawler wanted to punch him. Or he wanted Lawler to punch him. And Lawler ended up saying no, like it's not going to end well, I'll probably get arrested if I do, and whatever. So they do it, and Lawler didn't know he was going to smack him until he actually did, he says. And he did. Place goes nuts. He gets taken off the set by security, does Lawler. He actually comes back, because I think Kaufman wanted him back on the set. Kaufman comes back. Kaufman goes off on Lawler, swears at him, motions that he's going to throw water on him. Lawler kind of dodges it because he sees it coming, and then he kind of runs him off the set. And it's widely regarded as one of the greatest moments in television history, especially for those that did not know it wasn't real. The whole thing went off amazingly well. Jeff Jarrett, watching from home as a fan at that point, he thought to himself, this can't be an angle. This has to be real. He bought into it. And they continued to do it. And later, Letterman actually told Lawler years later when they were filming the Man on the Moon movie about Kaufman's life, and they had Letterman involved, as well as Jim Carrey and whatever, that Letterman actually told Lawler, you helped put my show on the map. My show just started a few months earlier. That segment was crazy. Got a lot of eyes on our show. He kind of said, thank you for helping us make our show a success early on, which is really cool. Jimmy Hart actually recalls, him, Kaufman pinning Lawler while he was masked. That being Kaufman, he had a mask on, pinned Lawler with Jimmy Hart's help. That led to Jimmy Hart and Kaufman putting a bounty on Lawler. And then they teamed up against Lawler in a handicap match. Hart and Kaufman were on the outs at one point. They turned on each other. They brawled, quote unquote, barely on their, on one of their shows or whatever. So towards the end of the storyline, Kaufman started coughing during one of his segments, whatever. And, Hart, I guess, was told by Kaufman, it's because I'm coming from a cooler environment, and that's probably why I'm coughing. It's probably a head cold. And he was on Lawler's show, was Kaufman a little while later. They were doing an interview or whatever, and he just couldn't stop coughing. And he told Lawler after the fact, I'm sorry, I was coughing the whole time. I actually just got diagnosed with lung cancer. And they continued the storyline. They continued to do stuff. I don't know if he wrestled after that, but he definitely did more stuff with Lawler up until he couldn't. So he passes away at 36, way too young. Lawler kept kayfabe even after Kaufman passed. Someone asked him, either on the news or for a show or whatever, what are your thoughts on his passing? He said, listen, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I hated his guts. Don't care much for the dude. It's always sad to see someone pass away. It's unfortunate, but I don't really have anything positive to say about Andy Kaufman. He's saying this all in character, by the way. And he actually met, Lawler did, he met Kaufman's parents on the making of Man on the Moon, and his parents told Lawler, we actually hated you. Our entire family hated you for years, thinking that you wanted to break our son's neck. The entire family hated you because we thought it was real, and Andy actually never told us otherwise, which is fascinating. So they talked, as they wind down here, Lawler and the boys talk about how that whole feud took wrestling to the mainstream. Lawler says it's a shame that Andy Kaufman is not currently in the Hall of Fame, and Triple H agrees, and hopefully that gets rectified come WrestleMania weekend, this coming year, now that Triple H is in charge. It really is crazy. I know he did nothing with WWE, but for wrestling on the whole, and WWE acknowledges a lot of what happened outside of WWE itself, including Memphis, and, they own a lot of the Memphis stuff and whatever. It really is shocking that Kaufman is not already in the Hall of Fame. Hopefully he will be soon. But anyway, they talk about how he did it because he loved it, and he actually never cashed in any of his checks. His parents found the checks that the Memphis territory, Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, whoever, gave Kaufman for his work with the promotion. He never cashed a single one. So great note to end on here. Very good episode. I know the AWA episode just aired recently, and another one this week. I'll probably catch up soon, but this one was great. Definitely check it out when you get a chance on Vice. New episodes every Tuesday. Or is it Tuesday or Wednesday? I think it's Tuesday. But yeah, great stuff. Check it out when you get a chance. Really liking the show so far. I will continue to review it here on the channel. Don't know when exactly reviews will be up, but they will be up whenever I get a chance to break it down. So thank you guys for checking out my review of this episode of Tales from the Territory. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Have a great one. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.